Right.
Halo, start na tayo? Okay, go, 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 bye!
Morning everyone! Isang magandang umaga po sa ating lahat mula dito sa Pilipinas, mula sa College of Agriculture and Food
um, Probably a commitment to join another network, um, looking into the possibility of um, collaborating with those that are in fresh fruits. So I think the output of this webinar will be essential for like-minded people to ensure, that the primary produce that we have, uh, the amount and the quality is very critical to ensure food and nutrition security. In behalf of the office of the Chancellor, our Chancellor Jose B. Camacho Jr., uh, the office of the Dean, the men and women of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, um, we would appreciate if our participants will ask more questions. So we will learn a lot from our speakers today. So it's good, really good to have that mindset of having not any idea of the topics at all. So of course, in the process of learning things, if you assume that you do not know anything, then probably you will absorb more. For those that are already in the field, I guess you should also ask question, although you may have an idea of what the answers will be. But just consider that maybe the answers will benefit those that are joining the webinar as well. So again, congratulations, PHTRC, and thank you to our speakers today. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you very much po, Dean Angeles, for that warm message po. Thank you very much po, Dean. And that's good news po that there is an ongoing talks po with our stakeholders in the food industry, and here in Post-Harvest, we are very open to collaboration with those stakeholders. And of course, Dean, as you said, PHTRC, we are mighty. Yes, and there's so much learnings today, definitely, and we will be together in digging those unknown paths and unsaid things. Thank you again, Dean. And now, guys, everyone in the audience, we're going international today. Did you know that? We would like to acknowledge our participants all over the Philippines, of course, and especially those watching from NZ or New Zealand. Kia ora. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Okay, so before we start our session, we only have some few house rules. First, to those who are joining via Teams, we kindly request to turn off your microphones during our speaker's presentation. And second, to everybody, if you have any questions during the presentation, you may write them down using the link that we will provide later. And the open forum will begin right after the speaker's presentation, and at the end of the webinar, kindly accomplish the evaluation form to receive an e-certificate. So don't miss the evaluation form to receive an e-certificate. So I believe you are all ready, and we are grateful to have with us our resource speakers from the Plant and Food Research Group, the Bioeconomy Science Institute in New Zealand. And we have not only one speaker, but we have three speakers. So let me introduce our speakers. It is my honor. Our first speaker is Dr. Guinevere Ortiz. She is a trained post-harvest physiologist with a strong commercial background that shapes her professional approach. And prior to joining Plant and Food Research, she spent a decade in the Philippines working as post-harvest scientist and fresh pineapple quality assurance lead for Dole Food Company, and later as post-harvest manager for Del Monte Fresh Produce. This immersion in industry has been invaluable to her contributions in both post-harvest science and international development at Plant and Food Research. And our second speaker is Dr. Shravani Gupta. Dr. Gupta is a senior scientist at the Bioeconomy Science Institute as well, Plant and Food Research, New Zealand. She leads research on microbial safety in fresh produce and seafood with a focus on sustainable non-thermal decontamination technologies. Dr. Gupta contributes to international food safety initiatives across Southeast Asia and the Pacific through the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade and Asian Development funded project. She is a key researcher in an NZ Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment funded by the Smart Idea Project, ensuring food safety for cell-based protein and industries. And lastly, we are also grateful to have our speaker, Dr. Fran Durflinger, who is a post-harvest scientist with the International Development Unit of the New Zealand Institute of Bioeconomic Science. Her work focuses across the Asia Pacific to reduce food losses and to improve the quality of fruits and vegetables after harvest. In fact, she led the project that founded the Asia Pacific Post-Harvest Network, which brought together post-harvest researchers and practitioners from across the region. And she continues to be involved as its coordinator. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome our three distinguished speakers from the Plant and Food Research Bioeconomy Institute. Hello.
When will you share the screen?
Are we supposed to start presenting now, Janrel?
Yes po. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Sorry
May
about
start
that.
presenting po.
Okay.
So while Gwen sorts that out for us, welcome everyone. My name's Fran, as you've heard earlier. I'm coming to you from Gadigal Land in Australia. I'm presenting from South Australia. So I have the honor to introduce our institute. So we will be talking about enhancing fresh produce quality and safety and insights from New Zealand's post-harvest project in Cambodia and the Philippines. And we're going to present to you 4 parts of this presentation today. Next slide, please. I'm going to quickly talk about what the Bioeconomy Science Institute is. Then Shravani will deep dive into post-harvest and food safety. And next, I'll be presenting on a food safety and post-harvest project in Cambodia. And Gwen, last but not least, will show us a short case study from the Philippines. Next slide, please. So Bioeconomic Science Institute, what we do, we're here to advance the innovations in agriculture, aquaculture, forestry, biotechnology, and manufacturing. We are brand new. We've only been incorporated in July 2025. We're an amalgamation of 4 institutes, which I will explain further in a minute. Sorry, a bit quick, but that's fine. So we came to life in July 2025. We're based in New Zealand, but we're work all around the world. We have representatives here in Australia as well as in the US, but there's also 20 locations in New Zealand. We just have gained a lot of staff as we were combined. So we're now about 2,300 people and more than 65% of us are research staff. So it's a larger number of scientists and other forms of researchers. Most of our income comes from private contracts and royalties. And we also contest funding, about 40% of which comes from the New Zealand government and other government organizations around the world. We have been able to secure a lot of funding over the years and made good profits, but we are still working to be more prosperous and accomplish more. Next slide, please. We have 8 core research areas. Some of them are new to us as plant and food. Things like food production systems and bio-based production as the first one. That's something plant and food does, but things like resilient ecosystems and land use, which is number 6, would be more covered by some of our new partners. Climate change mitigation and adaptation is something that's at the core of all what we do for all of us, so that's very important. And people and environment is a big aspect of where we go from here. if there's any questions, we will try to answer them for you later. So these 4 groups have been combined into the bioeconomy sciences. We have the Ag Research Group, the Menaku Whenua or Land Care Research Group, then there's SAS Plant and Food Research, and SciOn. The biggest difference possibly is, well, mostly the areas we focus on. Next slide, please. So we are plant and food. Okay, we go. Revenue, overall, we made progress, as in looks a lot, but we cost a lot to operate, so we don't make a lot of profit out of the revenue we generate. But most of it comes from commercial, as the yellow sign or the yellow part shows, as well as contestable funding and royalties. Royalties is from income that comes from our plant varieties and other technologies that have been invented over the last many years and decades. I think with that, I'll probably pass over to Shravani, but next slide, please. Yes, and off to why food safety and post-harvest. Have fun, Shravani.
Hi, kia ora, everyone. So Fran, Gwen, and I work a lot in the space of post-harvest and food safety. So today I'm going to start a bit of an introduction. Why do we work in food safety and post-harvest? So through the next few slides, I'll touch upon some instances where we see a high prevalence of food poisoning from fresh produce. Although when we talk about food poisoning, we do not immediately relate to fresh produce, but there are cases of fresh produce producing food poisoning. And we have gone out and sampled fresh produce from supermarkets or from retailers and found there is a high rate of microbial contamination in this fresh produce. And a lot of times we have found that it's not intentional. A lot of times there is little knowledge of food safety or appropriate food post-harvest handling that is causing these microbial overload. There's also less awareness about food safety and good agricultural practices, which are some of the things we have addressed through our programs. And what we say when we say quick wins is if we can work with the microbial contamination, raising awareness, and also invest in infrastructure and high technology, a lot can be achieved in having good quality fresh produce for the country and for export. Next slide, please. So, next slide, please. So what is food safety? Food safety refers to the handling, preparing, storing of food in a way so that there is reduction in the risk of foodborne illness. So in this slide, we can see a farmer washing produce in a pond, which is a large water body, which is open, and there could be animals contaminating the water, rainwater effluents, and things like that. The farmer means well. She's trying to wash the leafy greens, the lettuce, so that it's clean. But the quality of water that is being used to wash the lettuce is actually increasing the microbial density and increasing the food safety risk in this produce. So in this case, we can see how the knowledge and raising awareness can help that. We can also see the improper practices like incorrect storage or unhygienic handling and cross-contamination between cooked and uncooked food. So we see a stall in this slide where you have protein like eggs or meat, and then you have fresh produce quite next to it. So if there is eggs, salmonella or other contamination from eggs, that then cross-contaminates the fresh produce, and then we consume those fresh produce, then people might become sick. So food safety starts from all aspects of food and looking after it from farm until it's retail. Next slide, please. So what is the impact of food safety? So we know that globally, an estimated 110 billion of annual productivity and healthcare losses occurs due to unsafe food. And 30% of this, the 30% of those affected are children under 5. Not only the public health, it leads to trade reductions. Maybe the echo. The trade rejections and economic losses are caused by the food safety, and this contributes to damage of consumer trust and brand reputation. There is also the safe food production. When we have safe food production, that enables the market access and productivity. Next slide, please. So this is an example for a, just give me a minute, please.
Sharing, can you just inform sharing?
Yeah. Sorry about the technical issues. It's just we just adjusted this. This is a bit better. So I would like to talk about a foodborne outbreak in from E. coli and Salmonella in Vietnam between 22 to 2025. So if you look at the case studies, there was a very popular food in Vietnam, the banh mi, which was found to be contaminated with Salmonella and E. coli bacteria. And it's not 1 year, it's consecutively 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025 that it keeps happening. So while this is in the news, sometimes these cases are unnoticed. Although it's in the newspaper, we do not pick up such news of foodborne illnesses from eating common food. Next slide, please. So there's also case studies in Australia where we can see this happened in 2018, where there was 7 deaths, 1 miscarriage, and 22 illnesses from rock melons. Rock melons are very similar to watermelons. And the photograph we see here is how the farmers left all their produce unharvested in the field because of the outbreak where people have died eating rock melons. No one wanted to buy any more rock melons. So it was not profitable for the farmers to harvest and sell because no one would buy it. So I think not only the risk factor, in this case, the bacteria was Listeria monocytogenes, but the risk factor damaged the farmer, their livelihoods, and also the industry for a long time. So the outbreaks of foodborne illnesses occur in most countries, but sometimes it gets unnoticed. And it's also a lot of outbreaks reported from fresh produce. Next slide, please. So we will now look into one of our projects in Cambodia, the Cambodia Quality Horticulture. And Fran and I worked in this project. So I'll talk about the food safety aspect, and then she will talk about the post-harvest. Next slide, please. So in this project, Cambodian Quality Horticulture, the project ran from 2017 to 2025. So we had 8 years in this project funded by Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, New Zealand programs. So in this case, our aim was to increase the demand of local produce. So the farmers have higher income, they have employment, but we would like to do this, implement this through improved sustainable production practices, improved post-harvest handling, and increased integrity of food safety systems. So there are more safe vegetables for the farmers, for their families, as well as for them for their consumers. Next slide. So in this program, the way we started with food safety when the project started in 2017, what we did, we went to the retail market. This could be supermarket, this could be wet markets, farmers markets, and we collected samples, random samples, about 198 eaten raw vegetables. The reason we tested eaten raw vegetables was that those vegetables which are going to be cooked, if there's any bacteria in this produce, the process of cooking will then mitigate the risk of food poisoning. But if the vegetables are eaten raw, like the herbs or the salad vegetables, then if there is contamination, this will actually affect the consumers. So we collected 198 eaten raw vegetables, and there were about 58 different vegetable types. Next slide, please. And what we saw was the salmonella, which is a human pathogen. It should be absent in all samples, but we found 13% of all samples, so 164 samples contained salmonella, and it was present in 23% of the leafy greens. The other bacteria we tested for was E. coli. The E. coli bacteria is generally found in the gut of warm-blooded animals. So if the E. coli is present in food, it could be an indicator that there is fecal contamination associated with that food. When we tested for this E. coli, we found 13% of the samples contained E. coli, and it was present in 23% of the leafy greens from the partner farms. So we worked with some groups of farmers and groups of partner farms. So in those partner farms, we found there was 23% of their leafy greens were contaminated. Next slide, please. So we also looked at parasites, and we also looked at washing. So what we thought is okay that we have the produce, we bring it home, we wash it very well. Does it remove the bacteria and the parasites? What we found is that washing could remove some parasites and some bacteria, but if the produce already is contaminated with bacteria and parasites, it's very difficult to wash it off. And maybe washing with a sanitizer helps, but the best part is not to have the produce contaminated with bacteria and parasites. So, because washing in itself cannot mitigate the problem. Next slide, please. So we also understood that if the produce is already contaminated, it has come through the supply chain, by just washing it, we will not be able to solve the problem or mitigate the risk. A whole supply chain approach is required. So what was the intervention plan? Next slide. In this plan, we looked at, number one was awareness and training of food safety and post-harvest practices. We will still do the supply chain sampling, but the sampling of microbiological testing needs to be done at all different places, at the farm, at the pack house, and at the retail. And then we need to find where the produce is becoming unhygienic or where is the contamination happening. So when we understand where the contamination is happening, we can then mitigate the risk at that point. So, and then we will work with our partners to understand where the produce is getting contaminated and how we can mitigate that risk at that point of time, all through the pre-harvest, post-harvest, and retail. So the entire supply chain of fresh produce. Next slide, please. So what we did, we started with looking at the farms, and we detected numerous on-farm problems like poor water quality sometimes. Sometimes in the dry season, some water sources are used that are not normally used, or when there is rainy season, there is flooding, the terrestrial runoffs, the effluents come, so that water quality, poor water quality of water when used or to water the plants, the produce gets contaminated. And we already talked about the washing of the vegetables on site. If the quality of water with which the washing is happening is not good quality, we are actually not cleaning the produce. We are actually overloading the produce with microbes. There were animals present in farms where they were not meant to be. There was inappropriate use of animal manures, and of course, limited understanding or access to toilet facilities. Some of these problems were regular in some of the farms we visited. Next slide, please. We also looked at animal manures in specific. So there are use of biodigester system in some of the farms and the farmers, and this biodigester gas is used for cooking, and then the biodigester slurry, which is the animal manure slurry, is used for as a fertilizer for the plants. So what we found when we did the testing was those animal manures need to be properly composted. If the composting is not proper, then there are live bacteria in it that can damage the produce. So in this regard, we collaborated with Professor Kong Thong from the Royal University of Agriculture in Cambodia. So next slide, please. So what we did is we had students, and the people here looking like they're in space suits are our Cambodian students. So we did this experiment in Cambodia, and we use proper personal protective equipment so that our students don't get infected in any way while they're trying to do the experiment. So we collected the manure, we treated them in various different ways for treatment, and then we had this demonstration farms where we put these compost and manures in different doses in those vegetation, and then we harvested their produce and tested it to see what kind of bacteria is in the produce. The E. coli, how is it? Is it still alive, or is it dying because of the treatment? Next slide, please. So I have here just one slide where we look at the data. So the control, if you look at the axis, on the y-axis, we have E. coli, and you see the E. coli number decreasing. On the x-axis, you have the days of treatment. So we followed, so each of the sampling days, we took a subsample of those plants, and then we sent to Pasteur Institute for testing. And we found that you can see control is where we did not have any, we did not add anything. So that's just the slurry. And then when we add treatments like urea, then we can bring the number of E. coli a lot lower than when it's at the control. Heat also helps. So E. coli die off due to sunlight and the heat, but the lime and urea treatments significantly reduce the contamination in a short amount of time. Next slide, please. So apart from this field experiment, as I said, we also decided we should go to the farm and collect the samples right from the farm. So we see, is there the problem in the farm that the produce is getting contaminated? Then we follow the same produce to the pack house. We test microbiologically at the pack house. Is there something that the workers are doing? Is the area not safe? Is the water that is being used? So we do that. And then finally, we collect the same sample from the retail. So between 2018 and 2025, we followed multiple set of eaten raw vegetables through each state to understand where is it getting contaminated and how we can deal with the contamination. Next slide, please. And what we also did together with these kind of field experiments was training. And by training, I mean, can I have the next slide, please? Training had 3 different aims. So we want to train in post-harvest and food safety, but the training material in this case in Cambodia needed to be in Khmer, because if all the training material is it's in English, then the farmers would not be able to understand it. We also wanted the in-country trainers to do the training. So it's not only us going and train and leaving, we train the in-country trainers so that they can do the training themselves. We also prepared the training tools and the self-check tools overall raise the awareness about food safety and post-harvest practices. Next slide, please. So this is a map of Cambodia, and you can see that we worked in different regions. So there's in central city like Phnom Penh, and we traced the produce coming from different parts to Phnom Penh, and we tried to train through the supply chain. And it included participants like farmers, pack houses, commune agriculture officers, male, female, and we ensured that everyone is included, including the minority classes, so that no one gets out of these, does not get access to these trainings. Next slide, please. So if we look at the types of training, we went to the farms to train the farmers because it's difficult for all of them to travel to the city. We also had presentations on farm, little group discussion. You can see Fran and me in some of these slides. So we developed training tools. So sometimes it's spreadsheets, sometimes it's handouts, sometimes it's PowerPoint. So training material that is suitable to the training group. We also trained the rural agricultural officers, the commune agricultural officers, or the CAOs. They are Cambodian officers who are extension officers. So once we train them, when they go out to their communes, they can transfer the knowledge to their farmers and answer their questions. And we also did the World Health Organization 5 Keys training. Next slide, please. Other than that, other than the farm, we worked with the pack house. Again, you see Fran and me in this. And what we see here is the pack house staff, the pack house quality assurance people are doing the training. So we are working with them so that they can train their own staff. In this way, there is retention of the training. And also we did the internal control systems. We also did some very large workshop. Next slide, please. So this photograph you see was done in the Phnom Penh Hotel on the 24th August. There was about 100 participants, and our entire group is here. But you can see we had invited the government staff, the private companies, the supermarkets, the farmers, the students, the university staff. So trying to bring everyone together for the same cause so that everyone can see how they all play a role in maintaining the post-harvest and food safety. Next slide, please. Finally, I just want to talk about the results. So we started this program in 2017, and now we did the same sampling in 2022 and in 2025. So in 2022, if we are looking at salmonella, what we had present in 13% of samples was absent from all samples, and it was absent in leafy greens. So it was an excellent results from partner supply chains. So we only had control over those partner supply chains. In 2025, we repeated the retail sampling, and we found it was absent from all the samples of the people who have been working with the partner supply chains. This was a good result. Then we looked at E. coli. The next slide. In this case, in 2017, we had 29% samples which had more than 100 colony forming units per gram of E. coli in the vegetables. In 2022, we did not find any in the farm samples. We had some in the pack house samples and 20% of retail. And in 2025, again, farm samples were all good. We found in 13% in arriving in pack house and 6% in retail. So overall, if you click the button, overall what we could see, there was elimination of salmonella from the supply chains. There was elimination of non-conforming E. coli samples on the farm, and there was reduction in contamination at pack house and retail labels. And in this case, we worked through our supply chains to ensure that this food safety, hygiene, and post-harvest is maintained for those suppliers. So that's, I feel, was the success of this program. I'll just pass it over to Fran now to talk about the post-harvest from this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Shravani. That was a great introduction to the program. So same project, slightly different approach, even so we worked mostly hand in hand with food safety. So I'm going to talk about post-harvest. Gwen, next slide, please. Just a quick reminder, I kind of am preaching to the choir here, but what are we talking about when we talk about post-harvest? I always think about we're starting at the farm, we're starting at harvest really, then it needs to go somewhere. So we need to put it on some form of transportation. That can be anything, depending on where you are. You get tuk-tuks and bags, or you get people on motorbikes, or you have a proper truck. Sometimes you even get something that has cooling, and then it needs to go into a pack house or any kind of facility that it can be amalgamated or sorted and packaged and somehow turned into something that can go to market if it doesn't go from the farm directly. And then we again have to transport it and put it into a marketplace somewhere, either a supermarket, a local market, or a farmer's market of sorts. And on every step of the chain, we can have either contamination, as Shravani pointed out, but we also have losses. And so part of what we do in post-harvest is, how do we not have so much loss and damage? Next slide, please. So what we found in Cambodia was that handling at harvest or during the step at farm, that there was little knowledge about handling the product according to what would be a GAP certifiable and also food safe, but also something that would not damage the product. So often lettuce, as you see in the picture on the left, is harvested and placed on the ground. That is, so it could wilt a little bit so it doesn't break when it goes into the bag, but it can be then contaminated with soil. It might have been safe when we started, but it might not be safe anymore when we pick it off the ground, which is where we potentially pick up that contamination that we find between when we harvest in the field and send it to the lab right away versus when we pick it up at the pack house. Also in the middle, you see there's a bunch of people sitting on the floor cleaning spring onions. That's under a farmer's house. This is actually a big area where they can sit, but often things like that happen in their kitchen, which is also not ideal from a handling perspective. And then the cucumbers or gourds stored under, at least it's under an umbrella, but it's in bags and it is possibly not particularly cool. So storing product on farm is always challenging from a cooling, storage, and safety perspective. Next slide, please. Then we get to the pack house. I didn't actually have a photo or a story about transport, but that's a whole different story properly. So we started washing because washing was one of the things that we thought could be the solution to the problem. So the table we invented actually has a slope. So the side where the young gentleman is standing and that shower is visible is the highest part of the table. So there's fresh water coming into the table. And as it flows along, it overflows the sinks along the way and dilutes the water. So the water is cleanest on the right in that case and dirtiest on the left. And part of it is, as our colleague likes to say, the solution to pollution is dilution. So if we get enough water mixed with the dirt, maybe we get less onto the product. But overall, it's a 5-step washing system. You start with the roots, then is 2 whole wash steps and a soak step, and then there's a shower. And as you can see in this picture, there's a bund around the last sink because you can also have sanitizer in there. And that came about because, as you see on the photos on the left, washing on farm can sometimes be quite challenging, as Shravani pointed out before. What you can't see in that picture all this way on the left is that in the corner of the right of that picture was a cow drinking out of the pond as well. So it's not just a pond, but it's also a pond that is accessible by livestock, which is obviously not ideal. And washing in small containers, at least that person in the middle there is using 3 different containers and going from the dirtiest water to the cleanest, but that's also only really going to be clean for a short amount of time. But what we found is that not only does washing make the vegetables safer, it also is beneficial for the time you can keep it in storage. Next slide, please. More on our washing. While we found it's not the silver bullet that we hoped it would be, it does wash off some of the contamination, but as you see, the product we're washing here is called salat. It's something the Cambodians love. It's very curly, it's quite long, it's hard to handle, it easily breaks. And the farmers like to sell it with the roots attached because that makes it look fresher, that makes it look local, and yeah, just having a bunch of dirt, soil, and roots attached to the product, as we all know, is not ideal. So we've tried all kinds of different things. We tried adding different kinds of sanitizers. We tried household bleach, which is simple, easy. You can buy it in almost any supermarket. We also tried bleach plus a bit of vinegar because the household bleach you buy is actually, the pH is too high for it to be really that effective. So adding vinegar just gets it to a pH where the chlorine is more freely available and can easier kill the bacteria. We also used peracetic acid, or PAA, which is a post-harvest disinfectant that can work quite well. The problem with that is it has a pretty strong smell and it's not always very popular. Plus, it's not as easy to come by, but it can be used in organic production at times. So, which chlorine can't. And then we also tried a combination where we had first a wash and bleach and then a soak in the peracetic acid. That was pretty successful, but it's not something that's likely to be used very often. Okay, next slide, please. I think the biggest outcome really was that it's not that easy to see, but you can perhaps see at least that the non-wash after 2 days in cooling was the least appetizing looking. It was just a bit wilted. It was just not as fresh, and it still had the dirt attached. So washing it even just with water or washing it with bleach or bleach and PAA was really successful in the sense that the product just stayed fresh and can be stored a bit longer, which is a good thing because 2 days in the cold room doesn't seem very long. For a small facility, that can be quite good. Next slide, please. So one of the things we found most effective for good handling and cooling practices was that we made it clear to our partners that if they wanted to do anything ready to eat, so something that's packaged, you just throw into a bowl and put some dressing on top, it has to be washed. It also has to be packaged properly and cooled. And getting a cool chain going that is consistent is really the hardest part. But anybody who wants to do ready food to eat has to apply by those rules. And if farmers or farmer communities or co-ops want to send it to high value markets, it's important that they also get these things ready and right. So how their packages, how they handle it on farm and in the pack house, and how it then gets to the supermarket or the retailer is important, because similar to having to recall a product with food safety contamination, just having week after week product in the market that doesn't look appealing is not going to be very sustainable for a producer group. Next slide, please. And then one of the things we found in Cambodia, but we also saw that commonly in Vietnam as we were doing work there, is that alternative packaging and display methods are becoming more popular. So part of what we saw was wrapping leafy greens or other things into banana or other leaves and bundling it that way because it's more affordable, it's compostable, and there's less waste. But it does mean that if product is stored on a shelf that's not cooled, water loss is quite substantial and the product can look sad and wilted quite fast. In some cases that is a benefit because some producers think that makes it look more natural, but it's just something to keep in mind when alternative methods are used. The product needs to be handled and in good nick before it even gets to the supermarket. Next slide, please. And then one of the experiments we did over the time we did the project was trying to establish a cool chain and showed our partners that keeping it consistently cold will actually be beneficial for their product. Because cool chain is important, but also expensive. So having the cool store running before loading the product into the cool store, having a cool truck that actually has a functional cooling and is actually cooled before product goes in, washing and packaging the product and cooling it down before transport are all things a lot of our groups did not necessarily believe in or understand. And while the picture on the bottom right is quite small, you can see that what we call farmer would be the general chain that they usually did, where it was transported without cooling and wasn't cooled before packaging and wasn't properly cooled before transport. And then what we called cool chain was where we tried to establish a consistent cool chain from reaching the pack house all the way to reaching the supermarket. And it did stand up a bit better, hold its color more, and just looked less wilted. Next slide, please. So what we summarized to what are good post-harvest practices that need to be established was part of what the groups that produce have to set at the outset is which expectations does the buyer have for their quality, quantity, and maturity. So if it's not harvested at the stage they can get it into the market and at the size that the market requires, there could always be waste. We always tell our farmers that harvesting at the coolest time of the day to avoid having excess field heat and therefore reducing the need for cooling is important. If we can't avoid it, or if it is already hot, in a lot of countries that we work in already it is hot even in the morning, reducing field heat is, well, takes time. So assuming one can stick something in the cold store for 5 minutes and then send it off as cool is just not likely. And then we've always run up against the problem of how do we establish good traceability. So how can we make sure that what comes from which farm is still recognizable as coming from that specific farm in case there's ever a problem, either with quality or safety. Next slide, please. So what have we learned in Cambodia? Cooling, we know, can prolong shelf life, but we also have learned that having hot, cold, so a non-continuous cold chain can be detrimental to product. So it's always a trade-off between what can we actually establish and what can we actually maintain. Washing was beneficial for food safety as well as for freshness, but it's not a silver bullet. So if we can keep the contamination low to start with, food safety is going to be more likely to be maintained through the value chain. We haven't really solved the packaging problem. We haven't really attacked it either. But one of the things we would have loved to look at is how compostable plastics or forms of plastic that are easier digested afterwards could be used, but that was unfortunately outside the realms of the project. We have not yet fully established a traceability, but the GDA, the Government Department of Agriculture, has formed a system where you can buy QR stickers that can go onto your product, but there's a whole chain of issues with that approach as well. So again, outside our project. And then we definitely found that food safety and post-harvest behaviors that are beneficial for the product can be trained. And we try to ensure that we leave training materials behind. So there's posters and other things that remind staff of how to handle product. And we also have an app and a GitHub page where the material can be found. And if you're interested in it, we can send you the links afterwards. And now, last of my slides, please. Unfortunately, the project ended in March this year. And this was us all getting together for a final hooray in Phnom Penh, where we presented the findings of our project, and our partners presented the findings of part of what they did for the project to each other and to the wider community. And thank you from my side. I'm handing over to Gwen next to talk about a project in the Philippines.
So while
Just stop
Shirvani
sharing.
is, I have
also, okay.
stopped, yeah. So while Shirvani is preparing the presentation, magandang hapon, magandang umaga, may buntag sa inyong tanan. So I'm gonna take you back to the Philippines. Let's wait for Shirvani to further down. So we're doing some work in the Philippines, one in Quezon City and another one in Davao and North Cotabato. Let's just wait for Shivani. So the work that we're doing in Quezon City is around the redevelopment of their city markets. So the Quezon City has got 8 city markets, and some of them are in development, and while the rest are established. So a couple more. There you are. So, okay, so the project is entitled Supporting the Redevelopment of Quezon City Markets. Next, please. So this is a slightly different approach to what Shravani and Fran worked on in Cambodia. So this is more about city markets, and is a 2-year project by a co-investment project between the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade through the New Zealand government-to-government initiative. But this program has since folded, and now it's turned over to the New Zealand Trade and Enterprise. And 30% of the funding, so it's 70-30, is coming from the local government unit of Quezon City. So the project is implemented by us and through the Quezon City Market Development and Administration Department. And we also have partners. Other than that, we're partners with PHTRC, with SEAT, and UPLBFI. Next, please. So the original concept was for Quezon City local government and New Zealand MFAT to jointly contract us to develop. The original plan was to develop a cold storage facility. And the second one was to develop guidelines for improved food quality and food safety. So when we did the initial scoping, Shabani, previous slide. Okay, so there were significant food safety and handling issues and many supply chain transactions, and it was just quite complicated. So after that, they decided to try another concept. So there was a refocus on the development of a shorted safe food supply chain. Next, please. So the project outputs, these are the new set of outputs. One is the recommendation plan for a safe, fresh food supply chain facility for city markets. And number 2 is a guideline for upscaling the market vendors and wholesalers. And number 3 is to help Quezon City with their food security program. So that is including, previous slide, Shrapani, please. Thank you. The Quezon City food security is around understanding the status, identification of weak links, and scoping and mapping new supply chain models. Next, please. So we are bringing in a different set of skills here. We have people from stakeholder and consumer research, and me as the Postharvest supply chain, and Sharvani looking after food safety, and we have someone looking after program management and good agricultural practices. So it's a completely, we have people from marketing side. So what we did was we did supply chain mapping initially. Next, please. So we went to visit the municipality of Bugyas, where most of the vegetables will be coming from. So the markets in Quezon City, they would normally buy their products from the products they sell from the Bagsakan in Quezon City, like Balintawak or Divisoria. And in Bugyas, there's a facility that was handed over from a previous project by the Japan Agricultural Exchange Council, and they have the keen interest to work with Quezon City supplying fresh produce directly. So their facilities They have a 2-ton refrigerated truck and cold store facility. Next, please. So this is a simplified supply chain of vegetables produced in Bugyas. It goes through a different, it's a whole, it's a long supply chain, different layers. And, but we wanted, that's why we went and explored how we can shorten that supply chain and make it, and make vegetables fresher and more and cheaper for the end consumer and even the retailers. Next, please. So we also visited the Agri Pinoy Trading Center in Benguet. They are quite established, but there's a lot of layers there. And they have facilities, but there's the key issues being there's persistent pricing inefficiencies, there's poor waste management infrastructure, and high staff turnover. So we looked at all these stakeholders and tried to see where that proposed new supply chain for Quezon City, how that would fit. So next, please. After BAPTC, we also did food safety audits for the market. So they have identified 2 markets in Project 2 and 4. So both markets face long-term challenges due to higher commodity prices because they are not sourcing directly from the farm, but they are buying from the bagsakan. Goods are sourced from nearby wholesale markets and resold. Vendors rely on crude storage practices. They do have waste disposal facility, and but the potential areas for improvement are there's a need for training in food safety and post-harvest handling. Next, please. So these are some of the things we saw around Metro Manila. The wet markets are not well organized. There are food safety and post-harvest issues, obviously. Next, please. So we also Quezon City was trying to explore a supply chain where the likes of Lala Move would be involved. So it's a delivery and logistics company, as you all know. So the arrangement, though, with during our interviews, you have identified that this can still be pursued, but can be limited to supplying the needs of high-end subdivision residents within Quezon City. Next, please. So this is the proposed safe food supply chain that we are proposing for the city, where a farmer cluster is formed between Bugyas and some Quezon City urban vegetable farmers, supplying directly vegetables to institutions, restaurants, and city markets via the Quezon City MDAD. That's the main department that looks after the city markets. So this cuts the supply chain and makes it simplified. But whether or not this would work, we still have to find out. The project is still ongoing, and we still have maybe a few more months to go. Next, please. So as I said, this is a work in progress. Shorter fresh food supply chain recommendations have been developed. We have developed a supply chain food safety guideline for vendor business school. A pilot supply chain trial was conducted, but that has to be repeated. There's also what talks about agro-enterprise clustering with Jollibee Foundation. And Quezon City's expectation moving forward is to reduce the number of supply chain actors and transactions, reduce the opportunity of manipulation of supply chain pricing, increased farmer profitability, vendor and consumer food safety. Next, please. So what are the implementation challenges moving forward? As we all know, there's a long-term relationship between supply and customer vendor, which is called Suki. So this relationship can be, because these vendors have developed long-term relationships with their suppliers, but with this introduction of this new supply chain, this can be affected. Quezon City, coordination of orders and logistics. How can that be institutionalized? How that can be established is also a challenge. Another challenge is the role and size of the cool store, number of markets supplied, number of institutions supplied. How about the safe farmer suppliers? How about GAP certification? And how about monitoring and of food safety around these markets and the other stakeholders in the supply chain? So those are some of the implementation challenges. And like I said, we're still not there. We're quite but towards a third of the project at the moment. Next, please. So we are doing also a bit of work in Mindanao. This is on improving Philippine mango quality for export. Next, please. The project is with the local government unit of Midsayap, and our other partners are the University of the Philippines, Mindanao, Dole Asia, Mindanao Development Authority, and the Bureau of Plant Industry. So this is more about production, and we were just post-harvest was a small component of it, and we had the help of the UP Mindanao team by Dr. Bayogan to help us with our post-harvest assessment work. Next, please. So just briefly through the key achievements, this is been concluded, this project. We have redesigned the spray program for Philippine mangoes grown in Mindanao. We have optimized the spray timing for better flower and fruitlet protection. We have developed an MRL compliant spray program. No insecticide residues were detected, and fruit could be exported with no fear of insecticidal violation of MRL. We have also managed resistance, and we have identified environmental and economic benefits through the safe use of safer active ingredients. We have also reduced the spray cycles from 18 down to 8 within a 110-day period from flower induction to harvest. And we stopped applying pesticide altogether after bagging, which is at 50 days after flower induction. Next, please. And finally, we have also improved orchard practices through pruning and use of alternative fruit bagging materials. We have developed good integrated pest management practices through pre-harvest control, use of alternative bagging material, and hot water treatment for longer shelf life. And we have also field GAP certified our partner orchards. So in closing, next please. What are the key takeaways from our experience of working in the Philippines versus Cambodia? Next please. So this Venn diagram shows that although the Philippines is more advanced in market systems, regional variation in capacity, and has a strong private sector engagement. In contrast, Cambodia has got lower baseline infrastructure, highly receptive to new technologies, and have a strong community-based extension networks. There's still something in common between these two, that there is still a need for improved cold chain, and both countries still experience high post-harvest losses. So those are the commonalities. And in closing, next please, the key takeaways are as follows. Food safety is critical. Contamination can occur at any point in the supply chain, but simple low-cost interventions, as you have seen in the presentations of Fran and Shravani, through training and hygiene can make a big difference. Number 2 is that post-harvest practices matter. Cooling and the simple washing can improve shelf life and safety, and that consistent cool chain and traceability are essential, especially for high value markets. And finally, impact. Impact is that safe foods enables trade, reduces losses, and supports economic growth, and that awareness and training can drive sustainable improvements. And lastly, we'd like to thank, next please, our team at BSI-PFR and the Philippines program, of course, the CQH program within PFR, and the Postharvest Horticulture and my alma mater, PHTRC, UPLB, for the invitation to present to you this afternoon. I think that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to our speakers. Thank you very much, Dr. Fran, Dr. Shavani, and Dr. Quen, for walking us through your innovations, challenges, and the impacts of post-harvest and food safety initiatives in Cambodia and in the Philippines. So yeah, really, we're going international today, not only in New Zealand and Philippines, we have Cambodia and also in Australia. So there are really great insights and stories out there from your presentation, and definitely we've learned a lot from that. And so at this point, I am now encouraging our audience participants, if you have questions, you can just jump in anytime or drop them in our chat through the link provided in our chat box here in Teams. So we also have the QR code for you to scan. So just feel free to jump in. And I believe we have already some questions while you are discussing or having the presentation. So let me just quick run through about it. Okay, so there is one question from addressed to Dr. Fran, specifically on the washing method. So the question is, could the use of baking soda during washing can also be an effective method, like the use of bleach?
Sorry, we didn't try baking soda, but we actually attempted to wash with washing soda, which is very similar. I had Shravani come all the way from New Zealand with a big bag of white powder in her suitcase, which was a bit scary, but she managed, and we did get it to Cambodia. And yes, it worked, but it was no more effective than washing with bleach, and it was just harder to purchase for the people that we worked with in Cambodia. So that was not a very good approach. We didn't try baking soda, but we thought the same thing, having a kind of an alkaline wash and then maybe washing it off with some vinegar to have neutralize could be a good way. But yes, no, we did not try baking soda, but next time maybe.
Maybe something to try, right, Dr. Fran? Okay. All right. So we move on to our second question, also addressed to Dr. Fran and probably Dr. Shavani. So there is a question about the actual losses. So were you able to compare the losses using the traditional method prior to the cold chain intervention?
No, we didn't actually have a proper cold chain intervention. I should have said that test I showed was actually happening during Christmas 2020. So we were in the middle of COVID. We were having lots of restrictions. We were trying to get something working in Cambodia, so it was a bit challenging. But yeah, we tried to establish short trials that could show how cold chain works in the supply chain, but we couldn't establish a good working cold chain with any of our partners due to logistical issues and just them not taking on our advice really. So we might have failed in that regard, but we did show that cooling helps, but it just wasn't effective enough for a lot of our partners to take it on and see the economic value in doing it. So we don't have the numbers, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's completely fine, Dr. Fran. And just to quote you earlier, you've said that in this kind of endeavor or collaboration, there's really a trade of what can be established and what can be maintained, right? Okay, so also, this is a question for Dr. Shavani. How can you get potable water to wash vegetables in Cambodia?
So I think potable water, you mean how can you access potable water?
Yeah. I believe that's what she meant.
Yeah. So I mean, sometimes there are deep wells that are being
Okay.
used. And sometimes there are water supply systems, the town water supply systems. I think using uncovered body of water like pond or river is a bit more risky than using the deep wells or the town supply water. A lot of the farms use water which are from the deep wells. What we have to do is to have water testing done. So the water
Okay.
can be from any source, but as long as we have water testing done, we would say annually in general. But if you have rainfall events or heavy flooding or completely two different seasons like dry season and wet season, then you have to test the water. And if the water testing results are acceptable, then that can be used. For irrigation, we can use even water which is not potable grade can be used for irrigation, but we have to
Mm.
stop that watering at least 24 to 48 hours before harvest, right, Fran? I think that's where, so you have to stop watering for that time, exclusion period, and then only you can harvest. Hopefully
Okay.
that answers the question.
Yeah,
And if I
definitely,
can
Dr.
add,
Vani.
Yeah,
Go
you
ahead,
can
if I
add,
Dr.
can
Vani.
Fran.
add there, yeah, for like the irrigation, it's only really a problem if you do overhead irrigation. So if it's drip irrigation water that is not as safe can still be okay in most cases. And yeah, most of the town waters these days are potable in Cambodia. So water in Phnom Penh is pretty drinkable out of the tap at this point. But yeah, we have done testing, and one of the partners, we even installed like a UV treatment for the water. But that's, yeah, that brings other challenges with it, which is another infrastructure that has to be put in place, that has to be maintained, where parts have to be found. So yeah, if there's a possibility of using water that's easily locally available, that's much better than trying to treat it.
Yeah, definitely agree on that. Like locally available water could be also easily manageable to our farmers and also growers to treat their vegetables. Now we move on to our question, and I believe Dr. Gwen can answer this one. So the question is there any particular post-harvest technology that your team find efficient in the Philippines? So I believe the question is more about the locally available technologies, or maybe those that are also present in Cambodia that can be applicable to the Philippines and vice versa.
The question is a bit vague, but what I can think of is our experience working on the mango project in Mindanao. Um, i- the use of hot water treatment worked perfectly well with the spray program that we have developed. It's just that disease, the disease, I cannot quite think of the word, but the disease pressure was quite high, so that you have to supplement it with some technology
Mm.
post-harvest. So I think that's where the hot water treatment came into place, and even the practice of bagging fruit also helped significantly.
Okay, so Doc Quen mentioned about hot water treatment as post-harvest management practice, and also the use of bagging materials in the field of mango during mango production.
Yep.
Okay. Doc Quen, again, another question here, since you presented the Venn diagram of having Cambodia and the Philippines. So what do you think are the lessons that can be learned from Cambodia, from the Cambodia and the Philippines projects that can be applied to maybe some other Asian countries? So are
Mm,
there any best practices that
Can
our
I call a
farmers or growers
friend?
can
Can I
adopt?
call maybe Fran and Shravani from their
Okay,
work in Cambodia can chip in?
all right.
Well, I have a project on vegetables in Myanmar, and we find similar issues as in vegetable project in Cambodia. We had a vegetable project in Vietnam that had similar issues. It's always about finding ways of handling the product safely and carefully enough at the start that it can actually reach the market in a good condition. And I feel like that's probably true for most supply chains, especially as they start out. If I compare it to, like, say, supply chains in Australia or New Zealand, where perhaps fully automated, it's already packaged in the field, they can it goes onto a truck right away, cooled, and is pretty much in the store before you even remember that the harvest has happened. It's very different to having a small holder farmer who has to do everything by hand, and then it has to kind of go from there. And I feel like there are similarities around most of these supply chains, and technology that works is like if we get people to use reusable crates, for example, or things that keep it off the ground, developing easy to produce, locally available, small tools that can, for example, keep a crate off the ground, so at least soil contamination is limited. But all of that is things that, yeah, raising awareness and just telling people, remember this, it's someone's food. I find that already goes a long way. Shravani's nodding. Feel free to add to me. Stop me babbling.
I think one of the things, like when I look at food safety illnesses or foodborne outbreaks, we can see it across the globe. So it does not matter which country. You can look at records in US, you can look at records in Australia and New Zealand, and you can look up records in Vietnam. I just chose 2 countries, but you can look up everywhere. And some of the most important things is what Fran says, is raising the awareness in the Asian countries that it is someone's food. And whoever we have worked with, in Vietnam or Cambodia, or recently we did a project in Papua New Guinea, no one intentionally wants to have bad quality produce. So, and no one wants to sell something like, if you think about the farmers who were selling the rock melons that killed 7 people, no one would want to do that. So it's just because of not having the knowledge or the understanding that this is happening. So whenever there is raising of awareness, whenever there is this post-harvest and food safety handling and awareness, most cases people willingly make changes whenever possible, because the farmers want to produce the best quality food for their consumers. They trust that, if they sell good produce, people will come back to them. So that's the main thing I see across that, wherever you are, raising awareness and helping people support to grow the best quality produce is the most important thing. Yeah.
Thank you for the answers. Yes, I also believe that like even if we are somehow working on the same field, like food safety or post-harvest, it really depends on the country. And it's very important that in our discussion and also specifically in your presentation, we gain different perspectives, different perspectives that somehow these technologies could work, for example, in the Philippines, or whether it is also applicable to another country. And since we are already discussing about raising awareness, so we also acknowledge and understand that it's always good that we translate something from the laboratory, from the laboratory to the field, right? And that's what you're working on in the grassroots level. So you're approaching farmers and other industry stakeholders. And now the question, and anyone can answer, how has the capacity building activities that you did contributed to, for example, improving post-harvest practices and food safety issues in the countries that you worked in?
I think, as we pointed out earlier, it's probably the number one important thing, just raising the awareness that there is such a thing as good post-harvest handling and good food safe handling, and they go really hand in hand. I feel like if you handle it food safe, you end up with better quality post-harvest, and if you handle it in a good post-harvest way, you often end up with safer food. That's why we work together, and it makes a lot of sense to do so. So yeah, keeping it cool helps reduce growth of bacteria. Keeping it cool keeps it fresh longer. gets to the consumer in a better quality. So yeah, I feel like I'm not answering your question perhaps, but I feel like it's really important to raise the awareness and teach people what are, or enable them to understand why they're doing what they're doing and how they could do it better. And when they do that, when we achieve that, then we get the best outcomes. Like a lot of people, as Shravani said, want to do the right thing. Sometimes it's just about knowing what could be a better or different way of doing it and how it could be done to achieve what they want.
Yeah. Point taken, Dr. Fan, makes sense. Says, yeah, so really education and awareness, it's very important for people to understand and to, like find things to apply on their situations, applicable to their situations. Okay, so I believe we are done with the Q&A. That's really a wonderful discussion, everyone. Thank you for gracing our webinar. So this is a special webinar as part of the 48th anniversary celebration of PHTRC. And so for our appreciation, we would like to present you a certificate. So now I will turn over the floor to the head of the webinar committee of PHTRC, Ms. Rona. Take it away, please.
Thank you so much, Sir General. So let me read the citation. This certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Shravani Gupta for sharing her valuable expertise as a resource speaker during the PHTRC FreshTalks, a webinar series through the presentation entitled Enhancing Fresh Produce Quality and Safety, Insights from the New Zealand Post-Harvest Projects in Cambodia and the Philippines, held on November 20, 2025 via Microsoft Teams. Given this 20th day of November 2025 at the Post-Harvest Horticulture Training and Research Center, College of Agriculture and Food Science, UP Los Baños, Laguna. Signed, Dr. Matilde Maunahan, Director of PHTRC. The same certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Francisca Dorflinger for sharing her valuable expertise as a resource speaker. And last but not the least, this certificate of appreciation is awarded to Dr. Guinevere Ortiz, also for sharing her valuable expertise as a resource speaker during the PHTRC Fresh Talks. Again, signed by Dr. Matilde Maunahan, Director of PHTRC. So thank you so much again, and I will give the floor back to Sir Jandel.
Thank you, Ms. Rona. And we're now approaching actually the end of our webinar. But before that, we kindly ask everyone to turn on your video camera. So those who are participating via Teams, kindly turn on your cameras. And we're going to have the photo op session. So this is very important. Wear your smiles, everyone. So kindly turn on your cameras. Okay. All right, Ms. Rona, can you give the cue?
Okay, so let's just wait for others to turn on their camera. We can all fit in one frame, so this will be very quick. Okay. I'll take the picture in 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you so much, Sir Jonrel.
All right, so I see familiar faces joining us here today. And happy smiles despite the rainy season here in the Philippines. Well, it's time to conclude this very informative webinar. So now, may I call on the Director of PHTRC, Dr. Matilde Maunahan, for the delivering of the closing remarks. Deng?
Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. Do you hear me clear?
Yes, ma'am. Loud and clear po.
Okay. So, yes, that's a wrap. At this juncture, on behalf of the whole PHTRC family, please allow me to extend our utmost gratitude to our distinguished speakers and colleagues from New Zealand and Australia from the Plant and Food Research Group of the Bioeconomy Science Institute. Thank you again for accepting our invitation. We know you're very busy. And also to our equally busy but very accommodating Dean, College Dean of the College of Agriculture and Food Science, Dean Angeles, for gracing today's webinar. Special thanks to Dr. Gwen Ortiz. She said it earlier, a UPLB CAPS post-harvest alumni who facilitated and without whom this collaborative undertaking wouldn't have been possible. So today's event actually caps off our 48th anniversary celebration, which started as early as October, first week of October, with our co-organization of Post-Harvest AgriLink 2025. So our celebration, our theme really is propelling the horticulture industry through regional collaboration, co-creation, and technovations. And what a way to really cap off this celebration, because collaboration was the very formula instrumental for the establishment of the PHTRC 1977 through the Australian ASEAN Economic Cooperation Program, and it has thus continued to be the center's strategy in the implementation of its research and extension program over the years. Well, it's almost 5 decades of advancing the cause of reducing food loss and waste towards fresh produce quality and safety assurance. So the past 1 hour or so has been truly insightful, and definitely we all learned a lot from the presentation. So even if we haven't been to Cambodia, we haven't been to, they mentioned Vietnam and Myanmar, it looks like very fascinating. We thank particularly for actively participating HTRC family, particularly the men and women behind this webinar. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat. On to more fresh talks, because we always say that we always talk fresh. Good day, everyone, and God bless. Maraming salamat. Dr.
Thank you.
Fran, Dr. Stravani, Dr. Gwen, everyone, and yung mga hindi natin na-mention mga pangalan, mga nag-attend ng seminar. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much po, Ma'am Deng. Yes, so here in PHTRC, we always also keep it fresh. So we kindly ask everyone to fill out the evaluation form. So to our participants, please answer the evaluation form via the link presented on your screen right now for you to be able to receive the e-certificate. And you may also scan the QR code. So the evaluation form will be open until November 24. And your certificates will be available within the next 5 working days. And so for future announcements, please like and follow the official Facebook page of PHTRC, and you may also visit PHTRC's other platforms, and you may contact us through the email and phone numbers shown on your screen. And again, thank you very much to our resource speakers and to our participants. Our event has now come to an end, and we hope it has been helpful to everybody. Thank you all again to our participants for joining us today, and we hope that you gained valuable insights like the trade is of what can be established and what can be maintained, and the solution to pollution is dilution. Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
you.